Hi Pamela, thanks very much for taking part in our seminar tonight. And Pamela is the Chief Scientist at the Ministry of Fisheries, and we're really grateful to have her here to answer our questions. Pamela, you said in your presentation that currently in New Zealand we're overfishing 25% of our stocks. Why is that?
Overfishing basically just means that we're taking too high a proportion out. I think the more important figure that I also gave you is that it's slightly less, and in fact it's gone down in statistics that haven't been released yet. We've basically something like 13% of our stocks are in need of rebuilding, and all of those have actions in place. One of the things that happens is that fish stocks fluctuate a lot. The best way to manage them is to increase catches when they're high in order to create opportunities for obtaining food and livelihoods, and to decrease them when they go low. But we've got 633 stocks in the system. We don't have basically enough resources to keep track of them all. So sometimes we might only look at a stock, let's say it might be a 4-year gap or a 5-year gap since we've last looked at that stock, and when we look at it we say, oh, we've overshot the target. So therefore management action is taken to do that, but it will take sometimes a little bit of time, depending on how productive the stock is. It'll take a little bit of time to get it back up into the level where we feel comfortable with it.
But doesn't the fact that that can happen tell us that the limits that we're setting in the first place are too high, that they're not cautious enough?
I don't think you can stop fish stocks from fluctuating naturally. Now, some stocks will go through an order of magnitude change even without fishing, and I mean that's not true of all stocks, but for example things like sardines and anchovy and some of the small pelagics, they can fluctuate immensely in the absence of fishing. So we can't do anything about that. What we've got to do is when they are fluctuating for natural reasons or because of overfishing or whatever, when they get down to low levels, we've got to arrest that. That's the most important aspect of fisheries management, in fact.
I think I recall from your presentation that we've got 6% of our stocks currently in what's called collapse, is that correct? So once they're in collapse, are they going to recover or is it too late?
I think pretty much all of the fisheries that are in that situation have been closed. So yes, all else being equal, and provided they haven't been depleted too far, they will recover. There's no fishing allowed on them, and the best example of that at the moment is orange roughy off of what's called Challenger orange roughy.
That's a specific population, is it?
Yeah, that's off of the west coast of the North and South Islands, and we've been doing some surveys there in recent years, and basically it would appear it's recovered, quite not fully recovered, but recovered to the extent where we're pretty certain, we have greater than 50% certainty that it's recovered to a level where it can be reopened, but only with a small quota, only with a very small quota that's essentially going to allow research to continue.
Okay. You give the impression that the New Zealand fisheries management system is fundamentally doing a good job, at least relatively to the rest of the world. Could you give us the top 3 aspects of the system which make you think that we are doing a good job?
Well, as I said in my seminar, one of the things that New Zealand did early on, basically when it put its current quota management system in the mid-80s, 1986, was that it headed off any major overcapacity problem. What I mean by overcapacity is just too many vessels chasing, the size of resource that exists, and other countries have 2, 3, sometimes 4 or more times the number of boats that actually can make a living off of the resource without seriously depleting it. The other thing is that at the same time we remove subsidies. So the fact that we have no subsidies and essentially no overcapacity, it might exist for short periods of time in some fisheries, compared to much of the rest of the world that has subsidised overcapacity. That's how a lot of these vessels can fish in international waters, is that there are too many of them in their own country, so they're subsidised to go off and fish in international waters. And that's not the case in New Zealand at all. And I think the fact that we have, we do base decisions on science to the extent possible, you know, given limitations of how many species we can research at any one time, and enforcement as well. I think we've got a number of comments were made tonight that our penalties are not high enough, but compared to other countries, our courts are taking
this
these
issue seriously.
Really seriously.
If there were one thing you could change about the system to improve it, what would that be?
I think, well, I'm a scientist, okay, so I'm going to give you a biased answer. I would like to see more knowledge, you know, more information about more stocks.
More funding for research?
Well, I mean,
should the industry have to pay more to allow more research?
That's really something I don't think I can comment on. Research is primarily cost recovered from the industry, and it's a complex question as to who should pay for it. We are in a recession right now. We've got to be realistic about, you know, how much funding is going to go where, and of course I would like to see more research in fisheries, but the reality is we've just got to try and do more with what we've got now.
Okay. My final question to you is, do you feel that the fishing industry in New Zealand exercises too much lobbying and too much lobbying power and has too much recourse to the courts?
I don't think I can really comment on that too much, but we are working with the industry, and they are, you know, there's more and more pressure to take a really responsible approach. The QMS, the fact that they own this right in perpetuity, that helps. The Marine Stewardship Council, other certification systems that are actually where supermarkets, for example, are only sourcing fish from sustainable sources, that kind of thing helps. And the industry wants to improve its public profile as well, or maintain its public profile.
But the dollars are the bottom line for them, aren't they?
Well, I mean, they're in the business to make a
make money.
profit, but that doesn't mean to say that they can't act, you know, responsibly in terms of the environment as well. Industry doesn't want to catch seabirds or sea lions or anything like that. They don't make money out of that, and you know, and it's just unnecessary.
Yes.
Or at least, you know, it's not a positive for them if they can avoid.
But at times it's just cheaper and easier for them to carry on catching those animals rather than take the expensive steps that might be necessary to stop doing so.
No, I think the industry realises, and the industry realises that the public doesn't want that, and industry are the public themselves. I don't think they like killing unnecessarily.
Okay. The last question is, do you eat orange roughy?
It's kind of bland, you know.
Thanks very much, Pamela.